Okay, so let's dive into third normal form now. So exactly like second normal form, you're only in third normal form if you are also in second normal form. So remember, big exam tips, if you're ever defining this, always put that first because it's always 1 mark. Okay. So a table is in third normal form if it's in second normal form and there's no non-primary key attributes, which is transitive dependent on the primary key. Now, this is a really complicated definition, but actually, as it turns out, it's quite simple, but it's hard to spot if you're looking for it specifically. One of the nice things about third normal form in the exam is that it's normally fairly obvious. It's not something that's difficult to spot, but it's difficult to explain maybe why it is a transitive dependency. I think that second part is harder than actually spotting it in the first place. Okay, and I'll kind of go through that with you now. So the first thing we need to do is kind of digest and dissect this statement to see what it means. So when we say no non-primary key attribute, what we really mean is all the other attributes, basically. So all the attributes and specifically the foreign keys. Okay, so we make sure that everything is dependent, but not transitive dependent. So let's see what it means. So transitive dependency is a field which is dependent on a non-key, which is then dependent on the primary key. So it's kind of like got this intermediate step in order to get to the primary key. So it might be dependent on one thing, which is then in turn dependent on something else. So think of it along this line. So transitive dependency is kind of like if A equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C. So it's that kind of transitive dependency, A will equal C. So is there kind of a stepping stone to get to the primary key, or do you go direct? That's the way to think about it. So here we've got a transitive dependency in this this thing. So product is dependent on the primary keys. The name of the product is definitely dependent on a product ID because the product ID and the product are, you can't separate them out. The supplier supplies a product, don't they? So Argos is supplying us frisbee and t-shirt. Partners is supplying A4 paper and envelopes. So they are dependent on the product and not the primary key. Okay, so that is a transitive dependency. Now, as I said, that's sometimes a little bit more difficult to explain. If you look at the table a bit more closely, actually seeing there's a problem is quite quick, because if you look, well, I've got duplicate data, and if you think back to why we do normalisation, to get rid of repeated data. So if there's repeated data, which I have here and here, well, I've got to fix that. And to fix it, split them apart again. Okay, like I fix any other problem in normalisation. Another thing to think about it, well, products and suppliers are two separate ideas, aren't they? Yeah, so you've got products like frisbees, t-shirts, A4 paper, and suppliers, which are the organisation, the companies which actually are supplying that product. So again, if they're two separate ideas, two separate entities, then it makes sense to separate them out. So I find that an easier way to think about this than actually worrying about, is this a transitive dependency? I know it's probably not the most accurate and technical way of doing it, but this is just A level, and in the exams it will pretty much be more like that than anything else, a bit more technical. So this is a result of third normal form. So as you can see, I've created a supply table and I've got a product table. Notice my supply table, I've introduced a primary key, okay? Because if I didn't introduce a primary key, then I'll just simply have the supply name as a primary key. Now, although that is unique, I wouldn't get much benefit and the tables wouldn't look much different, and it will just have a table with those two supplies in it, and then the product table will also have those supplies in it. That would make very little sense, wouldn't it? So that is the result of third normal form. To finish off, let's do an exam question for third normal form. Now, I've kind of amalgamated two questions into one here, but it's the same, effectively the same. So here's the table. Why is this not in third normal form, and what is the result of performing third normal form? So I'm going to pause the video now, have a go, and I'm going to go through the answer. Okay, awesome. So let's actually delve into this. Well, first of all, now we know that third norm form is a transitive dependency, i.e. we try and get rid of them. So why is this not in third norm form? Well, because there must be a transitive dependency, otherwise it would be. Okay, so there's your answer straight away, it's transitive dependency. What is that transitive dependency? Well, that requires us to think a little bit more carefully. Now, we're looking for something which is dependent on something that isn't the primary key. Okay, now that's a weird way to think about it. Let's actually look at the table itself, and actually, hopefully, it should be fairly obvious because we've got information about a customer, we've got information about banks. Okay, so split them apart. Simple as that. So here we've got two fields, sort code and branch name. Well, the branch name is the name of the branch, the bank. So if it's in Hull, Cambridge, or whatever. And also we have the sort code for that. Now every branch has its own unique sort code, and that's what, if you ever have a bank card, that is what's on there. Okay, you have the sort code and your account number. That information is printed on your debit card, and that sort code is unique to the bank that you have got that from. So that was clue one. Okay, what was it? Secondly, there's another massive glaring clue here: repeated data. Notice we have got Cambridge in there twice. Now remember, we're trying to reduce redundancy and all that kind of lovely stuff. So there's the problem, isn't it? Okay, so we know it's got to be something to do with branch name. Okay, you're playing detective here, guys. That is how you work it out. Okay, you're looking for the problem in the table. So there's the problem. So it's got something to do with branch name. Well, the branch name is dependent on the sort code, and the sort code is dependent on the customer. Okay, there's your transitive dependency effectively. So it's a transitive dependency, branch name depends on the sort code but not on the customer ID. So breaking this up, we're going to have the customer ID, full name, account number. That's unique to the customer. Now, I think where some people find this question difficult is that they're maybe not so familiar with banks, so maybe you don't have your own debit card. But essentially, when you get an account in a bank, you will have your unique account number. Okay, that's unique to you for that branch. And then you also have a sort code for that branch. Those two together are unique for you and your bank account. Okay, so customer has customer ID, full name, surname, account number, and I'll come back to why it's got sort code in a moment. Hopefully it's fairly obvious. Branch is going to have just these two guys, okay, branch name and sort code, with the primary key being sort code because it's going to be the most obvious choice there. Now remember, we need to link these together using a foreign key. Okay, so we have got what is effectively a customer is related to a bank. So a bank can have many customers, but a customer will only be in one branch. Okay, because that's the way it works. Therefore, the foreign key must be inside the customer, which is why it's got the sort code there. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. This is as hard as the questions get for third norm form. I know a lot of people really stress about normalisation on the exam. They're dead easy questions as long as you follow my little tips. Look for the problems in the data. Okay, look for that repeated data. Figure out what the two entities are, and then bang, you can start to normalise. Okay, that is the secret. That is the trick for the exam. Okay, hopefully that's useful, and I will see you guys soon.